This is CBS Eye on the World. Here's John Batchelor.
The New World Report. Joseph Humire, Executive Director of Secure Free Society. 33 sovereignties, entirely Spanish-speaking except for the notable exception of Brazil, which we will attend. And we begin with a story not about the countries of South America primarily, but about Iran's presence in South America. I follow reporting by Joseph, most recently an article in DIALOGO, which is the magazine, the online and print magazine of Southcom, the part of the DoD that addresses the New World and the challenge of outside actors, Moscow, Beijing, and Tehran. Joseph, a very good evening to you. Your article in DIALOGO, it is good that the attention is brought to Iran. You tell me Iran has been sending in unusual flights to Venezuela. What do we know in these last days? Good evening to you, Joseph.
Good evening, John. Yes, so the magazine from Southcom, it's called DIALOGO. It's published twice a year. So the first edition for 2022 just arrived at my office. It just was released on their website. And what I wrote in their magazine, I wrote an article about Iran and Latin America from an analytical and a conceptual perspective, because as we've discussed previously on the show, Iran has a long-term vision for Latin America, and they've been there shortly after the Iranian Revolution. So you can go back 40 years and you have all this data of Iran quietly increasing its influence in the region. And I think Iran is now at a point after 40 years of becoming much more visible. Historically, they've been in the shadows in Latin America, and now they want to come out of the shadows. Part of the way that they're coming out of the shadows is through Venezuela. They're slowly, increasingly showing their hand inside Venezuela, mostly through the guise of commercial and cultural cooperation. So they have all the tankers that have been arriving in Venezuela since 2020. They have food shipments. They have a supermarket now that is made public. But what goes on behind the scenes is really what I think is concerning. As we know, Iran tends to use its commerce as a dual-use activity to be able to advance its military ambitions. And so over the weekend, John, we've seen a series of flights come in and out of Caracas from or to Iran that is just indicates that there's a lot of activity going on. One is this famous, or what I should say infamous flight called Aeroterror. It's a Conviasa state-owned airline that was known for almost a decade now of flying to and from Iran. It took off from Caracas on Saturday, and it went to Iran. It's probably going to be on its way back relatively soon. A Fars Kashem flight, an Iranian state-owned airline, very known to be connected to the IRGC, arrived in Venezuela on Sunday and has recently took off back to I assume Iran, although it's hovering over Spain today. And then an Iranian government flight, not a state-owned airline, but a government flight, arrived in Venezuela today and took off to Managua, to Nicaragua, early this morning. So there's a series of activities, and I think what we're starting to see is Iran really starting to show their influence in Latin America, which they've kept quiet over decades, and they're doing it mostly through Venezuela.